Brad Stevens has some big plans coming over these next couple of days, and we're going to break down and dive in what he can really get into revolving around this Celtics off season and looking ahead at the draft, looking at some key predictions that we have going into the draft night, looking at some predictions for the Celtics making their selections and potentially trading up, trading back, or even selecting where they are now and bringing in guys to really help their team for Joe Mazzulla and really resetting the squad to still be competent in the Eastern Conference next season. We're going to be breaking down and looking at all of that and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I am Bruce Veliz. I'm with my lovely co-host Patrick Billings over here. What's up, Patrick? How you doing today, my guy?
Doing good, Bruce. We got a lot of thoughts about, man. There's a lot of news that are dropping, and we got the draft coming up, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have a jam-packed episode here today, and we lovely have another guest as well with us, NikNBA over from YouTube and Nick over on Twitter. Welcome, Nick. How are you doing here today? Welcome back, and great again to have you again on the channel.
Appreciate y'all for having me, man. It's been a pretty interesting couple of hours, man. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. The Celtics have actually gotten involved in some stuff. We've heard a lot of rumors since the Celtics had been eliminated a little over a month ago here now to the New York Knicks revolving around this team, as obviously Jayson Tatum is going to be maybe out for the entire season, so the Celtics are looking to shed some salary and reshuffle their roster. But they finally went and made a move, and Brad Stevens, for some reason, loves to strike at the wee hours of the night, just when nobody is expecting it, and he did it once again just yesterday, making a big time move, trading Jrue Holiday away to the Portland Trailblazers, and in return, the Celtics got Anthony Simons and 2 second-round picks. Now, we broke this down in a video. I want to get Nick and Patrick's thoughts on this before we do dive into the draft, because it does have some implications for what the Celtics might be looking for in the draft and how they handle these rest of the roster and potentially going into the draft night. But Patrick, we'll start it off with you. You were the man that kind of made this prediction. We're shouting from the rooftop saying that Portland would be a great fit for Jrue Holiday, and you got your ask and you got your wish. So what do you break down from this trade here that we saw unfold?
Man, well, first of all, right in the middle of the night, we can't be doing that. I was asleep. I wake up to your text. I was like, what's going on? We end up with Anthony Simons. I'm pumped. First of all, I mean, I thought that Portland would be the team that would take him back, especially with how good they were defensively in the second half of the year. So that's why I thought it would make sense. And I think that their younger pieces have really come into their own and really just shown the type of players that they are. And I think that it would be a place that Jrue would actually want to stay this time around. So I think it made a little bit of a sense. But I didn't think Anthony Simons was going to be the guy that's on the board. I was talking more of Matisse Thybulle, a first-round pick, being that, what was it, the 10th pick, 9th pick, whatever the Blazers have, 11, and Robert Williams. But instead we get 2 seconds in Anthony Simons, who's a rising star in my opinion. He's an absolute beast on the offensive end. Came out of high school, so a little bit different. But, I mean, what a pull from Brad Stevens. I couldn't have been any happier because we knew Jrue Holiday was gone, and I think that this was the move in the right direction.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really like this move from Brad Stevens, honestly, in my opinion. Nick, what were your kind of main takeaways? I know you broke it down for you on the channel and in a live stream here, but kind of looking back at it, I know you've been watching some film on Anthony Simons. What is this big move from Brad Stevens really speaking to you?
Yeah, man, it just gives us a lot of flexibility in every avenue. So, of course, Drew was like an integral part of our championship team. I appreciate Drew. But when he signed that contract, I was like, like, yeah, he's a champion. I was like, when things go well, people get paid, right? So I was cool, but I kind of knew I was like, damn, he gonna have a player option at 37 years old, like that. He not declining that. So yeah, I'm glad that Brad was able to get a guy like Anthony Simons, who I think is a very good offensive piece, especially with Tatum out. He's a guy that can score the ball. He's a solidified 20 points, 5 assists type of guy, and the flexibility, like financially in the future, like we literally get off the last 2 years of Drew's contract. So and I think Simons still has not a lot. I think Simons has some good value around the league. So it during the draft before the season, if we get something, we get a call. They say, "Hey, we might can still trade him if he plays good. He improves on the defensive side. We can sign him, and if we can't trade him, doesn't go great, we just let him walk." So I like this deal because it just gives us um, a lot of flexibility and like just getting into Simons as a player. Like you said, Pat, an incredible offensive talent, a really smooth guy. Um, plays at his own pace, but he also has a quick first step. He's athletic as shit. Um, of course, it's not all great because the defensive side is something that really needs to be to be worked on. Like basically the complete opposite of Jrue, but he is athletic. He has long arms. I believe there are players that go to certain teams and they become better defenders. I think this guy is like 6'8", so it's not the same. But um, Wiggins, when he was with the T Wolves, was a guy that was like, he's a sometimes guy, but he's toolsy. Then he went to a team that needed him to play that, and we saw how that happened. Even a guy like Sam Hauser, who at the beginning of his time, he couldn't defend for shit, and then
Yeah.
he improved him. He got quicker on his feet, and now he's a actual role player. So I think defense can be improved. I think culture and the people that you have around you plays a part in that. But I do like Simons. I like the way that he plays his offense. I think we get a huge uh, j- um, uh, offensive uh, jump from him. Um, I think he can do a lot of things Tatum does from three, just from three. I'm not saying he's fucking Tatum, but like from three, Tatum ranked first in above the break threes attempted, which was like 9.5. Simons is in the 96th percentile with like 7.5. So that pick and roll, those pull ups, Anthony Simons can do a lot of that stuff too. So I love it.
Yeah, I really like the fit offensively, like you really mentioned here. Kind of supplements some of that 3-point volume and scoring that the Celtics will be missing with Jayson Tatum being out this year. And I think him working alongside some of these other guys is going to be really key. And I think one thing that a lot of people are forgetting too is before the Celtics, when they acquired Jrue Holiday, when they traded Marcus Smart away, Derrick White was set to be that starting point guard for the Celtics team. So him fitting in with a guy in Anthony Simons, I think we're going to trust that, obviously. Peyton Pritchard now coming off the bench. I really like this guard room for this Boston Celtics team. It does look solidified. And, Nick, you brought up the really key point of this trade really going down. The Celtics being able to shed some salary. Not only did they save around $5 million in this trade, right, they still have to shed $18 million to drop below into the first apron here and to get underneath the second. So they still have some more moves to do, which we'll get into in a little bit here later on in this video. But they obviously saved $40 million in the long term in luxury taxes here with those extra years of Jrue Holiday's contract, with obviously Anthony Simons being expiring. And they have the ability, like you mentioned, to either reflip that deal here at the draft or before the season even starts, or use him in a deal here with the Boston Celtics and either flip him at the deadline or even let him walk if it doesn't work out here for the Celtics. And I think they kind of value this trade. How I kind of saw it was very resemblant of the Derrick White trade from a couple years ago, right, where Derrick White came into the Boston Celtics squad, and he was known as a key role player, someone that was like a solid defending option, but wasn't the best offensive player here. Didn't really know if his fit was going to really blossom, if he was going to transcend into being that third star for the Celtics, but he really took over for this team and really fit in like a glove. And maybe that's what they see with the guy Anthony Simons, being 26 years old, really investing in that and trying to kind of find those new star players to rebuild this team around Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown for the future, similar to how they did with guys like Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porziņģis just a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, I think one more thing, Bruce, too, that brings in the question about his offense, and I think how much he grew as an offensive scorer as well, because he came out of IMG Academy, like I said, but he was kind of under Dame's wing for a long time over there in Portland and really took over that Dame type role and kind of became a little bit more of a level scorer. He wasn't just a 3-point shooter. He has a good mid-range pull-up, and he could also attack the rim like no one else on the court with him. He's got a really, really good jump as well, just getting to the basket. I believe he was in the dunk contest. I could be wrong. I think he was in the dunk contest, but also in the 3-point contest. So clearly that shows that his offense is key. But I do like what Nick said as well. I think guys, when they get put into a right situation, they can pick up a little bit more on the defensive end. And I think with the Boston Celtics, that's definitely going to be something that's prolific when he comes here.
Yeah, he was in the dunk contest, I believe, 2021. But yeah, like got 36% from three on 8.5 attempts. He shot 47% from the mid range, and he shot 61% at the rim. So like, literally,
Yeah, exactly.
I think I saw some stats too where I think it was Dan Greenberg had one where he was one of the only players that made like 200 threes a season or something like this season or something like that, and I think they were like 20 across the league or something like that, and the Celtics had like 5 of those players on the roster now, including Anthony Simons, which just goes to show he's going to fit into that Mazzulla ball really well. And Justin Turpin, I know, had a stat where I think it was like his attempts right were like in between Jayson Tatum and Derrick White. So like if he was on the Celtics team, he would be like attempting like the third most threes and was hitting pretty good efficiency with those numbers from Portland. So when you kind of look at that at transparency rate and kind of compare it to the Celtics, it does look like you guys have mentioned that he's going to be able to fit in offensively, being that catch and shoot scorer. But not only like Nick said, he has that quick step, he can work in the pick and roll, can really have some good fundamental keys of his game, pretty solid cutter to the basket. And I think offensively, his name has been mentioned with some other teams we've kind of heard around the league, like Orlando, maybe even Miami, I think has been mentioned as some teams around a guy like Anthony Simons. But I think for Boston here, he's going to not only be able to bring that offensive light, but if he can learn on the defensive end and really be able to fit in and get better on that end, he can be one of those, great steals that many teams are talking about how Brad Stevens once again flipped another player and got the best player out of the deal, similar to how he did with Porziņģis, similar to how he did with Jrue Holiday, even similar to when he did when he got Malcolm Brogdon, which led to Kristaps Porziņģis, right? He's been an absolute mastermind, and you got to keep your trust into Brad Stevens, and I fully do trust him going into this offseason, following seeing this Jrue Holiday trade, going into those other moves that we can discuss a little bit later as well.
Yeah, and I think one last thing that I do want to touch on the trade as well is the first thing I thought about when I saw this trade is that, like, oh my gosh, him and Peyton Pritchard are going to be an issue on offense. Seeing them both on the court together, I feel bad for anyone who has to stay in front of both of them. Just both twitchy, quick, like offensive guys that are going to get past you and just kind of play the same way, but just Anthony Simons is a little bit taller, obviously. So I think that's just another fun little duo that the Celtics are going to have going on as well.
Yeah, I really like that. I think, like you mentioned, Patrick, the offensive game from both of those guys is going to be really fun and really interesting. And this Celtics team is, once again, not rebuilding, not stripping it down. You can clearly see that by these moves clearly being made. They're still going to be competent. They're still going to remain relative in this Eastern Conference and staying afloat. And that's what we want to see, is winning basketball and having them at least put up a fight. And a guy like Anthony Simons is definitely going to display that with the Boston Celtics. But we can get into some draft talk here, as when this video is going up for you guys on tomorrow, we will be the day of the NBA draft. And the Celtics, as we all know now, with the draft being 2 separate days, only have 1 pick going on Wednesday, as they pick at pick 28. I did get it right today before we did say it, before I said pick 29, talk about the Suns, but they do have pick 28 here. And with pick 28, they have a lot of options right now. With this Jrue Holiday trade, we had mentioned, me and Patrick, potentially maybe they try to get another first round pick, and the Celtics could still move up in that first round here using some of these other contracts that they have as Sam Hauser, Kristaps Porziņģis, and or some of their other picks that they do have, because they just did get 2 seconds in this Jrue Holiday deal. So before we dive into any prospects here, I have to ask you guys this question on where do you think the Celtics will do, if they'll trade up or if they'll trade down. And if they do trade up, I'd love to hear that guy that you think the Celtics could realistically trade up for.
Nick, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, man. I was gonna bring this up later, but the trade up, trade down thing is this really like ties into it. So, the pre-draft workouts for the Celtics have been, like, the last 2 years have been something that they've really they've honed in on. So, last year they worked out Shaman, who of course was the first round pick, Anton Watson, who was the second round pick. They also got 2 guys, Jalen House and Tristan Inaruna, who were on their summer league team. Then the previous year they worked out Jordan Walsh and Drew Peterson. So all of those guys, the Celtics actually ended up either drafting or bringing to their team in some capacity. So why that's interesting to me is that the main guys that are on the list right now is Cedric Howard, Janai Broome, Chaz Lanier. Those guys are guys that aren't like in the 28 to 32 type range. Coward is supposed to go near the lottery. Broome and Chaz are like later second round. So what that says to me is that there's either a trade up trying to happen or a trade down trying to happen. I believe Brad will try to trade up first. We also got some more ammo in the Simons deal with those 2 future second round picks. But I do like Howard. A 6'6", uh projectable 3 and D guy. He can really shoot the ball. I would have liked to see him at Duke, but just like competition. But like he did some things in those games where it's just like, all right, he's shooting this good. Like he obviously can shoot the ball. So the only things I saw with Coward were like even on the defensive side, I don't think he's like technically sound, but he has long ass arms and he is toolsy. So even sometimes when he gets kind of lost, he's still able to deflect the pass. So it's just like having that um, is great. So Coward, if they trade up, if somehow Sorber gets past Phoenix and like Toronto and those teams that need a center, probably if Malawash goes Queen and we have a surprise. But if Sorber gets to like 12, 13, like I would be super down for that. But and trade back scenario, I think there's a lot of value in at the end of the second round. Obviously, I love having pick 32, but if there's a guy like that you don't absolutely love there, I think there's so many guys in the 40s and 50 range that can really play. Like um, they worked out uh, they worked out Chaz. He's a phenomenal shooter. I wouldn't pick him at 32, but I would pick him at 42 or 52. You know what I'm saying? So, there's a guy named Kentucky. There's a guy at Kentucky, Amari Williams. He's a 5 man, the best passing uh, big man in this draft. Will fit right in because every Celtic center can pass at some capacity, and you have to be able to pass and screen. Two things that he does really good. And Sion James out of Duke, who I think is being really underrated because he literally can do everything. He can shoot, he can drive, he can guard multiple positions. He's athletic, so I think the Celtics have a lot of options, and I trust Brad to make the best one.
Yeah, I think you hit everything on the nail there because that's a lot of similarities to what my thoughts are, especially with moving up. I think if they do move up, I've seen reports that the Thunder and the Nets also want to move up as well, and they also are looking at Cedric Howard. So I think a lot of teams are thinking the same thing. And like you said, especially on the defensive end, he will overcommit a decent amount of times, but his arms are so long that he still keeps up with the play and he's able to stick one in there and get a steal or any type of stock possible. So I think that he's definitely a great option. And outside of him, I don't know if there's really any other guys that they're going to trade up because, like you said, the past 2 years, they're drafting guys that they've worked out. Clearly, sometimes there's some workouts that are had that aren't being talked about. And I feel like this just classic Celtics, just not telling anybody anything that's going on. Surprised we know any of them that worked out for them. But again, I think that they would really have to move up deeper, like into the beginning of the draft, more like in the middle, instead of moving up just a couple of picks. I don't see that happening. So if they don't get into like that 15 to 18 range, I do think that moving back is definitely a viable option. And a couple of the names that you said as well in the second round, if they move off of that 32, did the video on Kobe Bryant. I think he's another great player as well, a great shooter, probably the best in the draft, and very highly talked about as a shooter. Some of them saying that he's the best shooter coming out of college since Curry, which is, pretty high praise for somebody, especially in this draft. Shot 50% his last year at Dayton from three, so he's no joke. But I mean, you kind of hit everything on the nail, man, Nick. I mean, everything that you said, I totally agree with.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of you there, really. I think you guys, once again, hit it on the nail there perfectly. I think when kind of analyzing who the Celtics could pick, it would make sense for them to draft people that they have worked out, obviously have that resemblance with. And I think that's why it's a little bit interesting to look at a guy like Cedric Howard, depending on if they do trade up, because he was one of those high prospects that they did really keep an eye out. I do like Thomas Sorber as well. I think he'd be obviously a great ad, but I'd like to mention that what Patrick said as well, which is if they do trade up, maybe it's something interesting with the Timberwolves. I know they have 17 and 31. Maybe they can do something with 29 and 32 with a player or some additional picks or something like that to kind of move up with them and try to do something to kind of get something involved. That's something to potentially keep an eye out, like around that area, obviously. And ultimately, I think that for the Celtics, if they didn't and they traded back, like Nick mentioned, there are some plenty of guys that he brought up. Chaz Lanier, who worked out with the Celtics. We broke him down and talked about him before we went into the stream. Obviously, a guy, Amari Williams from Kentucky, Kobe Bryant from Kentucky. Those are guys that I obviously watch and I'm very high on. So I wouldn't be shocked and would not be disappointed as well if the Celtics went that route and traded back a little bit, got some more secondary ammo, similar to how they did 2 seasons ago when they traded back for Jordan Walsh a couple of times and stacked up on some more additional draft picks, something that could help them maybe down the line in some other trades if a Kristaps Porziņģis or a Sam Hauser deal doesn't get done before draft night, to make it a little bit easier to get some things done. And I think that's really key with the Celtics, right? There's a lot of uncertainty with this team, and with Brad Stevens, he moves in silence. We heard rumors with Jrue Holiday linked to teams, and the Blazers were not one that we even heard a whisper of. And even like you said, Patrick, even if the Blazers were a team that we talked about and thought about, Anthony Simons was not a piece that we thought could get back. So Brad Stevens legitimately could swindle and pull off something that nobody could think is even possible, and everybody could just be absolutely shocked and dumbfounded going into the next day. And that's what we can really anticipate with Brad Stevens, which is very fun to see. But when looking at picks 28 and 32, there's obviously a lot of key pieces that the Celtics can draft there, right? And for us kind of going into those picks, I'd love to hear, your guys' top 3, maybe top 5 picks around those options here for the Celtics. I know that they are a little bit close, so we can kind of go in general.
I'm so sorry. Kristaps gone. Kristaps gone. He gone.
What?
No way.
Atlanta and Brooklyn. Yep.
And then Brooklyn 3-team trade that sends Kristaps Porziņģis and a second-round pick to the Hawks, Terrence Mann, and Atlanta to the wait, George Niang in the second round to bro, the contract's gone. It's gone. Holy shit. It's gone. The whole contract is gone. Oh my!
Oh, in the middle of the video, would you look at that?
Brad is he's the whole contract is gone.
So Georges Niang makes 20. I think like
makes
eight.
$8 million.
He makes $8 million. So that's 22.
And he's oh my god.
In the middle of the video, would you look at how that works, guys? I mean, that is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. I mean,
wow.
George Niang, I thought he hates the Celtics. He must be pissed. I mean, this is the middle of recording. I mean, would you look at this, guys?
That is ass.
Wow.
I mean, I guess we might as well get into the next topic, which is initial thoughts. I mean, Nick.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. We'll get into the draft. Obviously, we'll still look at 28 and 32 in a little bit. With this kind of coming in right now, this is definitely something to talk on. Our boy Nick Goss is going to be getting a video out now, so you guys will see the initial reactions coming out from Celtics Digest, obviously here in the next couple of minutes. But with us recording and obviously uploading this tomorrow, this is kind of coming in as shocking news. So Nick, yeah, let's hear your thoughts. Kind of roll off the bat. Porziņģis to the Hawks. What's our really thoughts with this? Obviously, some more news might be rolling in the next couple of minutes, so we'll definitely keep our eyes on that. But like you mentioned, Georges Niang, $8 million. Porziņģis is 30. That means the Celtics cleared $22 million, which means they have now dropped below the second apron and are now into the first apron here, ladies and gentlemen. The Boston Celtics have pulled it off without even trading the contract of Sam Hauser, which is something that we all thought might have to come as a cause. Now, we could also see that move also come through here in the next couple of days. But if they get to keep a guy in Sam Hauser, still get the draft at 29, and like we mentioned, have the possibility to now have the full MLE to offer to Luke Cornett or partially to him and Al Horford, this is really key for the Celtics and being able to keep this kind of core together like we have mentioned here on this channel in the past. So Nick, take it away.
Is Brad Stevens Jesus? Question I have is my initial thought. Is Brad Stevens Jesus? Bro, like people thought that we were gonna have to give up. I'm people that thought that we were gonna have to give up assets to get rid of KP. Now, we didn't really get anything back, to be honest, but we just saved 22 M's, and like, dude, wow, like, the CBA has really shook us, honestly, but the way that Brad is handling this shit, like, getting off of Jrue for a guy that actually can score and that can actually play, and then trading KP, like, hey man. So listen, top priorities now. Well, I'm gonna let y'all talk. But this is just like, sheesh, man.
Okay, I just want to step in and say this one thing before you go, Patrick. I just saw a tweet from Bobby Marks that I think is going to make us all smile. By trading Porziņģis, the Celtics are now under the second apron. By trading Porziņģis and Jrue Holiday, these trades have saved the Celtics a projected $180 million in tax penalties, boys. That is so key for the Boston Celtics here. That is just amazing. Got to give their props to Brad Stevens. Once again, we always put our trust in Brad, and he does it once again. Patrick, take it away, man.
We talked before this video. Did one of you say as the Atlanta Hawks as being a certain suitor? I think, Nick, you said that, right? I mean, what a call, first of all. Second of all, initial thought, I'm blown away. I didn't think that we were going to see this early. And I was kind of going to bring up the point about, we could hold on to him until the next trade deadline next season. But like you said, I think the second apron is kind of scaring a lot of teams. I saw on my way back from work today that the GM for the Nuggets talking about the possibility of, we don't want to get into a spot where we have to trade number 15. And I think with the Boston Celtics kind of doing this so quick within these 24 hours, it's like, clearly it's scaring a lot of teams. But I mean, man, my first thoughts are Brad's a wizard. That Brad is just a wizard.
Yep, and I wish Porzingis the best of luck. I think we didn't talk about this with Holiday, but we did talk about it off stream. We didn't talk about it on here with the fit with Portland. I think that fit's going to be really nice. But also with Porzingis here in Atlanta, now running that pick and roll, pick and pop with Trae Young. If he's fully healthy, that's going to be lethal. Dyson Daniels, Zachary Zarche, Jalen Johnson. They're losing Clint Capella. They still get to keep Onyeka and Kongwu. They got rid of Terrence Mann and Georges Niang, which Terrence Mann was from the Bogdan Bogdanovic deal from the offseason, and Georges Niang was from the Karis LeVert deal in the offseason. So two contracts that they got last offseason that weren't really, long-term salaries, basically just filler salaries for them getting off of them. I think that's absolutely key for the Atlanta Hawks there as well, trying to, once again, maybe make a strengthening push in a little bit of a weaker Eastern Conference. Porzingis with that squad, they were healthy last season. They were around 4th, 5th in the Eastern Conference. Maybe they are a sleeper 6th, 7th seed in the Eastern Conference here that can make a little bit of noise in a first round.
Bruce, I think we're all just blown away right now, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely. I think that I'm more shocked that we were able to duck the apron with this, right? Because I think we all anticipated that a Porzingis deal was going to happen, right? But we all figured we were going to get a salary back, like we talked about before the stream, they were linked to the Bulls. Maybe it was going to be a Vucevic or a Zach Collins contract. Or maybe if they were going to trade him to, I know that the Spurs were interested earlier today from the report, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Pelicans, right? There were some teams that had some salary filler contracts. So if you were the Celtics, right, maybe you were going to be getting back some of those extra contracts in return here. But for the Celtics here, like we mentioned, they're taking back no salary, right? They're getting back absolutely basically nothing. Georges Niang, $8 million on an expendable deal. That's something that also could be flipped down the line, right? Who knows? Maybe on draft day, that's a deal that is flipped to Utah. I don't see Georges Niang staying long term, but even if he is, right, Georges Niang as a backup power forward / center playing the 9th, 10th man for this Celtics team in this rotation isn't completely awful for $8 million. And I think that that's something that lets them, once again, like we were talking about, now get to invest in Luke, get to invest in Al Horford, which was the two key free agents, and still explore that center market in the draft, right? Look at a Maxime Reynal. Look at a Ryan Kalkbrenner still, maybe a Danny Wolf, and still address that center position. Because now, with no Kristaps Porziņģis here, with Al Horford and Luke Kornet as free agents, the only centers under roster are Xavier Tillman and Neemias Queta, and we love them. I know we all do, but that's not going to be enough for the Boston Celtics, unfortunately. All right, Nick, what's up?
Don't talk about K like that. Listen. Oh, we also got a 2nd round pick. I don't know if it's the 2030 shit, but
it is the 2031 Cleveland 2nd rounder heading to Boston alongside Georges Niang. The Nets now have picks 8, 19, 22, 26, and 27 in tomorrow's draft.
Oh no, they going up.
They're going up. They're going up. Yes.
Hey!
Wow!
Whoa!
I see another thing here from Keith Smith. I don't know. I'm so lost right now. I mean, he's saying that there's way more to come, but the Celtics are now out of the second apron by $4.5 million. and the Celtics are 7.4 over the first apron and about 15.4 over the luxury tax.
Bro,
Yep.
So
we can now like aggregate contracts.
Yep. Now we can that's the thing too. Now we can aggregate contracts, which is so key. So like even if they like, I'm not saying that they would do this, but if they wanted to get an upgrade for Pritchard and Hauser, they could take that 17 mil. Or even if they wanted to I guess even dump a Tillman in another contract, right? They can take that $4-5 million and send it somewhere, and maybe they go out and get like, I know someone just picked up their player option in Javon Carter. Maybe that's a piece they go out and look and get as a point guard to kind of bring in to help be another playmaker and defensive type of guy. Or maybe they go out and try to get, I know we talked about this smaller contract, Chris Dunn on the Clippers. He's $5 million. He was linked to the Celtics as well. Maybe they go out and try to get him to help out that defensive run in the point guard position. There's a lot to keep an eye on. Even guys like Jordan Walsh, J.D. Davidson as well. There's going to be a lot to keep an eye on with this Celtics team now, especially with even some of these smaller deals going into the draft, because who knows? One of those guys could be sent away tomorrow with a pick to move up, move down. That's another thing to keep an eye on as well to help the Celtics even shed some more salary, which will be key.
yeah, I think that this gives the Celtics more of a reason to move up, honestly, and I think that if they move a couple of pieces to help move up, maybe if they keep the 28, I think that would be cool as well, because I know we're going to get into some prospects, but I think that this gives them more of a reason to draft a guy like Reno, because he's the little Kristaps Porziņģis, like a lot of people are saying, and I think that that's a great fit, and I think he falls right into them at 28. So I think maybe if they can make a move to move up, they could somehow, because with what Brad has been doing, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could keep their 28 pick and still somehow move up.
That is true. I could easily see them using those seconds they got yesterday, pick 32, maybe even a Sam Hauser contract to also move up as well.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, man.
Nick, any other thoughts, man?
This is crazy, bro. Like, wait, and then because I'm just saying the key scripture. He said, "He capitalized, way more to come." He capitalized. Yeah. Second Abram gone. And I kind of always thought that this was the route with Kristaps, because his value was at an all-time low. He just had like really bad playoff series. And I thought if a trade was going to happen, it was either going to be us trading him for someone that we can use in the future, or like picks. But if not, it would just have to be us either waiting until next season to see if he can get his trade value back up, or if a team would like to give us a player that's like a lot worse than KP but makes a lot less, and that's the trade that we have here. So we did just and I kept telling people that Jrue is a guy that has more value than KP, because for playoff teams or teams that are trying to, Jrue shows up every time in the playoffs, every single year. So we trade Jrue for somebody that the Celtics can actually use. KP, not so much. But we get under the second apron, which like seemed like limbo to two at the beginning of this shit. And Brad did it in 2 moves. He didn't have to trade Sam Hauser. Like, he didn't have to do any extra shit. He did this shit in 2 moves, bro. So, and then if we don't bring Simons back, we could have a Max slot or something like that. So, like, I ain't even tripped. Like, man, it's crazy, man. So I'm just glad that we have a GM like that, and now we can focus on the draft. Well, we got a lot to focus on, but we can talk about the draft more. We can talk about even this like opens up a lot of like actual trades for us to bring in players from other teams. But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think you brought up some great points with that, Nick, as well. And like you mentioned, Anthony Simons could potentially be flipped, which could help the Celtics even have more flexibility. They could even break that contract down into 2 smaller ones as well, potentially at the trade deadline, which gives the Celtics even more flexibility. And that's what Brad Stevens is trying to do, right? Make the most flexible team to have the assets to build this roster not only for next season to still stay competent, but also gear up for the next season when Tatum does come back, so they have that flexibility to build the right roster around him. And we saw them do that similarly 2 seasons ago by bringing in Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porziņģis. And I see Brad Stevens kind of doing this similar route here, trying to shed this money, and I'm really, really excited to see. I know you mentioned, I think it was you, Nick, before one of your streams saying, like, we weren't having Brad Stevens as our GM, I would be completely nervous. Like, I wouldn't be like trusting into this space right now. Like, I'd definitely be a little bit skeptical with these deals. But the fact that we have Brad Stevens makes us so calm and confirmed that we're going to be able to handle these deals. And clearly, he put that on display just in not even 24 hours, guys. Legitimately, last night at midnight made a trade, and then now at 7 p.m. makes another one. Just working those phones, working aggressive, and making the right moves for the right time. Because Porziņģis was mentioned today with 8-12 teams, and the Hawks weren't even one of those teams that were mentioned earlier in those reports. And then right again, similar to the Portland Trailblazers, out of nowhere, Brad Stevens finds the right deal and gets it going. Before we finish off this trade, I just want to kind of go over what was sent out. So the Hawks sent out the 22nd overall pick and Terrence Mann alongside Georges Niang and a 2031 Cleveland second. They got Kristaps Porziņģis. The Nets obviously didn't have to send out anything. They got a first round pick added on to them, and they got Terrence Mann, who's going to be a salary filler contract. And then the Celtics obviously take Georges Niang, a little bit of a smaller contract to help shed that salary and make it easier for the Boston Celtics here to now have some flexibility going into free agency. Before we leave this trade off, I'll just leave it to you guys. 1 out of 10. What's your ranking for the Kristaps Porziņģis deal?
Nick?
I go 8. I'll go 7.5. Even like, well, no. Per my expectations, this is exactly what I thought the value of KP was. So, the fact that we got out of the second Abraham in one deal, two deals, but with KP, it was just one. I'm gonna go 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go just about an 8. Honestly, I think that getting off of all that salary so quick was truly unbelievable, and I think this just opens up a lot of windows for the Celtics to make even more moves. So I think it's a good spot to start, and that's why I think we're gonna see a 10 in a little bit. Probably within the next 10 hours. Who the hell knows? So Brad Stevens is still cooking, and I think that this opens up the door for a lot more opportunity.
Yeah, I really like this deal. I'm going to give it overall an 8.5. I think, obviously, getting off the salary was the major key point. We'll have to see what the Celtics do with the contract in Georges Niang. Will he be brought back to Boston? Will he be shipped out with another deal? Obviously, with it still being technically the offseason, these trades going down this calendar year, they can still go down with those restrictions, or they can go down post July 1st, July 6th. We'll have to keep an eye on that when this deal goes down, similar to the Jrue Holiday one. But obviously, Brad Stevens working the phones, doing a great job, and this has been a great video. Obviously, talking about the Jrue Holiday trade at first, then went into some draft, and then we got this surprise bomb here once again from Brad Stevens. Luckily, this time, not at the wee hours of the night, just a little bit in the evening here, right around dinner time here for most people. But now we can dive in and get back into those draft prospects here to close out the video. So when looking at picks 28 and 32, once again, boys, I'm just going to ask you 3 to 5 guys that you guys can think would really fit in for the Boston Celtics at those picks. Patrick, I'll take it to you first, then we'll go to Nick, and then we'll go to myself. So when you're looking at pick 28 and 32 here for the Celtics, what are those guys that you're really looking at as an eye out for a prediction for this team?
Yeah, so I think I'll just leave Cedric Howard out of that if we're just going to keep it at 28. I think the most realistic, especially now with Porziņģis off the team, like I said, is Maxime Reynaud. Just a baby Porziņģis filling that same type of role, and I think that he'll play well with the Celtics, especially with him gone. It gives more opportunity to play. 4-year guy out of Stanford, so I think that he's definitely going to fit in well with the Boston Celtics. And I think Rasheer Fleming as well. I think he's another piece. I think he's going to fall right around that 24 to 28 range, maybe even to 21, but another guy with some length and size on the defensive end can, hopefully find a little bit more of a jump shot. But, I mean, like we said with Anthony Simons, you go to another team, you kind of work on some weaknesses, and it kind of brings it more into your game as well. So I think that's more of a positive that the Celtics could bring in. And I think let's kind of go with a Danny Wolf. I think that Danny Wolf would also fit in incredibly with the Boston Celtics. I think we're looking a little bit big here with Porziņģis gone now. I think that's the number one need, and I think it's really apparent now. I know a lot of people in the comments keep saying that. Stop talking about guards. We need a center. Well, now we definitely need one for sure, so I'm definitely going to talk about it a little more as well.
Yeah, man. So, centers, Kalkbrenner, Reynaud. Neither Hauser would probably be more of a 32 option if we don't get a big at 28 or we pick a wing at 28. But Drake Powell, who I've talked about a lot, Celtics still need defense, and they need guys that are athletic. So him, Adu Thero from Arkansas, those are two of the more athletic forwards in the draft. Drake Powell has a clear path to be a 3 and D prospect because he shot 38% from 3 last season. Thero, his path to being a real impact player all around is a little bit more cloudy, but the physical tools and the way that he's can still attack even if guys are like sagging off of him is really good. So those are the two wings. Kalkbrenner, again, is just one of the easiest projectable backup bigs. Like, is elite on both sides of the rim. Can finish, can block shots at a supreme rate. Reno, just like you say, is a very offensive, creative, 5-man who can really take the ball off the dribble. He can shoot. He can shoot in the mid range. He can post up. He can score inside. So he is kind of like a three level scoring five guy. That is not a great defender, but he can block shots. So, and Niederhauser from Penn State is just an uber athletic 5. A guy that can really block shots, can really finish. He's gonna have to do some work around the edges, but yeah, man, we got some options.
Yeah, I really like those guys that you guys brought up here for the fans here. Like I said, I think with now Porziņģis being gone, that clear center piece is going to be need to address, specifically with Horford and Kornet still being out there in free agency, the uncertainty of being able to bring both of those guys back. So for the Celtics, kind of looking at those pieces, like you mentioned, maybe a Maxime Reynaud tried to be that shooting big for the Celtics to kind of replace that three-point shot from Porziņģis that they will be missing here as a rim protector as well. I really like him. Ryan Kalkbrenner, similar to Luke Kornet in that frame as well. You mentioned Danny Wolf, a little bit more passing big. I think those are kind of the three guys you look at for the Celtics at this pick. If they do fall to there or around there, maybe they do trade a little bit up to get them. When looking at the wing position, I know you mentioned guys in Drake Powell you really like as well, Nick. I really like Nico Clifford. I don't know if he's going to necessarily be there at pick 29. I don't think he will be. But if he were to slip and fall for the Boston Celtics, I think that's a little bit of a gritty, grindy guy that they kind of find as a 3-and-D wing to help alongside maybe a guy in Jordan Walsh, and all depending on what they do with Sam Hauser's contract as well, really trying to evaluate another hole at that wing position, because it's clear that with trading for Anthony Simons and trying to fill out with Peyton Pritchard and Derrick White, that guard position is pretty solid. Maybe they look at a guy in Cam Jones at pick 32. I know he's been roughly around there coming from Marquette. With them obviously getting those offense creators and already having that offense, maybe that's something the Celtics don't really look for. Maybe they look for a defensive guy at the point guard position, and I don't necessarily know if there are many of those guys in the draft here, but for the Celtics, going in, I think, trying to get one of those key bigs, either Reynaud, either Danny Wolf, or Kalkbrenner, is going to be a vital piece for this Celtics squad. Maybe even a John Berenger as well, if he is able to fall. His stock is a little bit all over the place, but yeah, center is the position that I'm looking for the Celtics. And I think going into tomorrow, like once I said, there is some uncertainty regarding where the Celtics will pick, but as we all trust Brad Stevens with making trades and with these selections in Baylor Sharman and Jordan Walsh these last couple seasons, I do think we can trust Brad Stevens going into tomorrow with pick 28 to make the right decision and ultimately making the right one at pick 32 as well. So I want to say thank you to Nick for coming on to the video today and hopping on, talking to us over on Celtics Digest, breaking everything down. Nick, it was absolutely fantastic. We got the live reaction for the Kristaps Porziņģis trade as well, which will definitely be a fun clip to be surfacing around over on the Twitter space for all of us. And I'm glad that we were able to capture that great, unique moment with all three of us here to really get our true reaction. So once again, thank you for hopping on. We really do appreciate it, my guy.
Hey, man, appreciate y'all. I feel like every show get better and better, man. Draft.
Hey, come on, man. Hey, I think one thing that we can agree on before we end on this one, I think we need a hashtag 28 in the comment section from everybody so we can remind Bruce that we have the 28 pick and not the Suns keep saying 29. So let's get a hashtag 28 down below as well.
Yes, we'll get the hashtag 28. We'll definitely remember that. Patrick, once again, my guy, thank you for hopping on. Great discussions as always. We'll have the breakdowns for you guys. As you all know, with the draft coming on today, we'll have those predictions for you going over who the Celtics do pick at that pick 28, or if they trade up, trade down, wherever they select. We'll have a video breaking down what that player is going to bring to the Celtics team for you guys. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to stay tuned to Celtics Digest. Check out Nick's channel as well at NikNBA, because he'll have some breakdowns going over some Celtics picks, Celtics trades, all of that jazz. I know he'll have a Kristaps Porziņģis video going up after we get done with this, so that will be great for all of you guys to check out. And once again, thank you guys for tuning in. We really do appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics. Peace out, everyone.